Quickly before we get to break, Van Jones, I want to say that people have been asking me, and I don't know if they're asking you, why don't we hear we want to hear more from the protesters. We want to hear more from the protesters. And what I tried to explain to them is, if we look at these pictures here, this is Ferguson, Missouri. Many times the protesters will yell and scream, but they don't want to actually come on camera and talk.
And I can't tell you how many times you would actually invite someone over and try to get them on, and the minute the camera, they would run away. You're seeing a generation, I think, on a knife's edge between violence and nonviolence.
Yeah.
And I hope that the tug of war wins out. It was so sad to see those beautiful kids out there doing the right way, and then all it took is one group of knuckleheads to knock them off.
And the person who we were talking about, that the reason I brought it up is because of Jason Carroll, and Jason Carroll is back out there now. We're going to go live to him, and of course, Jason, the same thing. We try to get people to come over and talk. Not all of them want to talk. Many people just want to they're just upset and they're just vent. But Jason Carroll back out on the streets. Jason, what's going on now where you are?
Well, we just heard an announcement from St. Louis County Police. They've told those who are still out here that if they continue to remain here, they will be arrested. And at that point, those members of the police department moved across the street, started making arrests, started to tell the people here, it is time to go. And if you do not go, you will be arrested. And so the crowd has started to disperse. It seems as though, at least at this point, it seems to have taken some of the tension out of the situation, surprisingly. Still a tense situation, but not as bad as what we saw just before. So, Don, once again, they are moving in. They are telling this crowd out here, if you do not leave, you will be arrested. We're waiting for the announcement to see what in terms of what happens next. But then at that point, some of the protesters, demonstrators, I don't know if you can make it out from our camera position here, moved up into a small hill up there, just not too far from where we are now. Here comes the announcement again.
You need to return to your vehicles, and we need to leave this area now.
There, you just heard the announcement again.
The far north side here or the far south side, or you will be subject to arrest.
That announcement coming there, you can see from the vehicle there, shining his light.
Residents and media personnel, and we need to leave.
The warning also to the media to leave the scene, as well as those from the general public. So we're monitoring the situation. We're going to stay here as long as we possibly can, safely, without getting arrested, just to bring you what we have from here. Don?
So, Jason, I want to ask you, do you remember this summer when the protesters were ordered to keep moving, that you couldn't stand in one place? And then, of course, the judge said that that was unconstitutional. The protesters now, I would imagine, they're being told to just stay off the sidewalks, but they're being allowed to move, but to stay as long as they're on the sidewalks, correct?
No, it started out you could stay on the sidewalk, then the announcement came, you've got to go. You can't stay on the sidewalk. They said they called it an unlawful assembly. It was time to go back to your vehicles and go home. That announcement came not only for the Ferguson residents, but for the media as well. Here's the announcement again.
Refusal to leave, and you will be subject to arrest.
There it is again. Refusal to leave, you will be subject to arrest. So I know what you were saying, because I remember that point when you were allowed to walk around in a circle in that area on West Florissant as long as you kept moving. And what the officers here first tried to do is said if you stand on the sidewalk, you can stay, you can protest. Then a few minutes later, the announcement came, you can't even stay on the sidewalk. If you're in this area, you've got to go.
All right, our Jason Carroll on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. So you can hear protesters now, even the media, they're saying, officers are saying, you have to disperse. No protesters out on the streets. If you are on the street, you're going to be arrested. That is in Ferguson, Missouri. As we look at these pictures in New York City now, you can see that protesters are still out on the streets of New York City. We're going to go back now to Ferguson and Ed Lavandera. Ed, it looks like someone has been tear gassed. Ed, you there?
Subject to arrest.
From one of the canisters, a lot of the officers are holding gas canisters, and he was being treated here. And these officers continue to move around this particular location, trying to get these the remnants to disperse from this area. We're in the same location where Jason Carroll is, and they're trying to get a lot of these people to move on home at this point.
Now, or you're subject to arrest. Go.
disperse or you're subject to arrest. You can see that's how they're kind of laying out the situation here for people. Don, you heard that directly from those officers talking to one particular gentleman who was not leaving the area.
Ain't nobody in the street but y'all.
And they're kind of getting these folks to disperse back into various parts of these neighborhoods. What was made this situation a lot more dangerous and a lot more fearful for a lot of these officers was that this was a situation where they were going into the neighborhood or threatening to go into the city hall. Here is just inside the neighborhood, and that's what I think made the situation a lot more nerve-wracking for these officers as they went into the situation. They started leaving the police department area and were making their way through this neighborhood, and that's when the more serious confrontation here took place just a short while ago, Don.
All right, Ed Lavandera on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. And on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, police are ordering protesters off the streets or they are subject to arrest. We're following the protests here as well as in cities all over the country. We're back with our breaking news on the other side of a quick break.